on to our first event, which is a panel discussion, how to build a movement. And this will take us to 1:30, but the last 10 minutes, I'd love to open it up to questions. So while we're talking up here, if you come with any questions at the end, we'll see if we can fit them in. That would be great. So can we please welcome to the stage Helene, Eiliott, Peter, Andreas, Sattrup, and Diana Krabbendam. So while they're making their way, so we're all aware of the new European Bauhaus EU initiative aiming to start a grassroots movement. So we thought it would be really interesting to hear the lessons and insights from our panelists about building a movement that's kind of imposed from a political entity, top-down, but building a movement from the grassroots up, because it sounds a bit of an oxymoron, a bit of a contradiction in terms, perhaps. So Helene, Eiliott works for Stavanger Municipality. She's an innovation advisor, and actually your project is an NEB-level project, a kind of sister project to Desire. It's called NEB-Star in Stavanger, one of the 6 NEB lighthouse projects. Peter Andreas Sattrup is head of green transition at NCC, which is one of Denmark's largest construction firms, but he has a secret connection to Desire, which we'll find out about in a minute. Maybe it's not so secret. And Diana Krabbendam, I hope you're feeling okay, is a civic designer and one of the founders of The Beach in Amsterdam, a social organization in Amsterdam called The Beach. And she's been involved in the Desire project at Wildemanbuurt in Amsterdam. And I wonder if we can start with you, Helene. I'd like all 3 of you just to maybe give us a brief introduction to give a little more depth to your project. So what have you been up to in Stavanger?
Well, we're 2 years down the road of 3 project years. In Stavanger, we're a consortium of 16 partners, and we are the only lighthouse project that has private developers on board. We're very proud of that because it sort of points to our tradition in the area of sort of having good collaborations with the private sector as well. And what we're trying to do and striving to figure out how is to use the municipal plan as an instrument to accelerate the Green Deal, to also implement the NEB values. And we're doing that by testing in 2 test beds in the city, one more rural than the other, different methods and tools where co-creation happens, where we see how can we connect with other kinds of societal actors that the municipality doesn't necessarily have a tradition to work together with. So that requires a whole deal of different approaches and understanding and confronting fears of meeting new conditions and actors to collaborate with. So yeah, it's very exciting.
What's the time frame for the project?
3 years, so we're 1 year left.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Peter, you have a connection that goes a bit further back to Desire, beyond your current position. Please tell us a bit about that.
Well, well, first of all, I'm really thrilled to see you all again. I mean, I've been a little bit off the scene, for this project for a while, but I was actually participating in, the co-creation process that Torben introduced and helped coining the mission statement, creating the Irresistible Circular Society. And it's so good to see you all again. We're also at NCC, we're sort of long-time collaborators with Next, who was behind the garden caretaker project. So we're also sort of sponsoring part of the project, sort of in an unofficial way.
Yeah, you gave them that space, that wonderful space in the middle of the new development out in Herlev.
Yeah,
about
we've been
20 minutes
collaborating
outside
with them for a very long time, but the garden caretaker is a really exciting project, but you probably know quite well already.
And we're going to hear more from later. Diana, please tell us what you've been up to in Wildemanbuurt.
Yes, well, I would like to tell a little bit more about that I'm not alone. We worked with a lot of people in the Wildeman neighborhood, people from the community, to develop all kinds of projects that were launched, initiated by the people from the neighborhood. So they were in charge, and they worked in design teams. So we call them design and do groups. So there were 6 design and do groups, all working on the topics they thought were important in their neighborhood, a neighborhood of around 5,000 people living there. And of course it was surprising to all of us what came up and came out of it, because we didn't decide about what kind of topics, so they decided. And I have to say, who are we? We are 2 organizations, The Beach and Samenwonen Samenleven, 2 NGO's, one more social-oriented, one more cultural-oriented. We worked as a team collaboratively to support the people in these design and do groups. So that was exciting. Like you already
can only imagine.
a lot of surprising things came up. So we learned a lot. So it was a journey. But the most important thing is that we found out that altogether we made a stronger ecosystem in the neighborhood. And not alone in the neighborhood, but we also created at least the beginning of some connections with the municipality and other institutions that are of course also part of the ecosystems we need to at least reach some goals.
So when we started, I talked about it as an EU top-down project to create grassroots up. But when I talked to you before, what I found really interesting was that you saw your role more as part of a triangle about kind of facilitating two-way conversation. Can you talk a bit about that and what was required? Because it sounds, and I think probably, Helene, you have some similar experiences. But
yes, I think so.
The difficulties of that, the challenges of these very different groups.
Yeah, well, first of all, for us, it started with the community, the people in the community, to see them as co-designers. So in our work, everyone is a designer. So the people in the neighborhood, they are experts in everything about their neighborhoods, the neighborhood. So we needed let's say, their expertise to start up everything. And that's something that's quite challenging, because to them it's quite new that they are in this role and not invited to participate in some project that was launched by somebody else, by the municipality, for instance. So they were not participants, but they were actually leading the project. And for all of us, it's new to do so, because also as organizations, we had to be aware of our roles, which was not doing nothing, but it was doing other things. It was supporting them, trying to find out what was behind their ideas, trying to help them to organize things, to define what they were actually doing, but also translate it into activities. So there was a lot of work to do. But it started with them, and from there, the triangle. Of course, we found out that it was necessary. We already knew, but it is necessary to collaborate with all kinds of institutions that are used to work more top-down. And that's this kind of creating relationships and trying to make connections is something that needs a lot of work still. So we are in the middle of it, but we achieved some things. Yeah, I think we made first steps to make this triangle work.
And I guess it's a balance between enabling people to take control and make decisions, or leading them, and striking that balance, and then also trust must play a huge role in many different directions here.
Absolutely, yeah. So the trust is you have to build on trust, but it's not there immediately. So it takes time and a lot of work to build trust and to find out what you need to create places of trust or environments of trust.
Do you have some concrete tips for that?
Concrete tips. Well, first of all, start with the people, listen to them, and not just listen, but really listen to them and try to understand what they mean. So acknowledge their role as citizens and leading this project. So acknowledgement is important. And then it needs in terms of the process, well, the idea of setting up these design and do groups was really helpful because they put them on the place of being a designer. So now they feel they're designers. This is new to them. So we created a kind of situation that was helpful. So you need situations that enable this trust building.
And you see you nodding your head vigorously there, Helene, because I know in your project you really have everything from artists to the municipality, to designers, architects. We know how difficult they are to deal with. How have you
Who were difficult to deal with?
The architects.
Oh, yeah.
My God.
Not the artists.
How have you managed to spin all those plates?
Well, I hope that we did manage to juggle, and that we. But it requires trust, and also the listening part is really central. And these are actors that are not used to be listened to. So also sort of really breaking it down almost to the individual level, and go out there, talk to them, move away from your desk, and sort of safe indoor bunker, and then go out and address and talk and do that continuously. And I have an example with we have a concept or a tool called Quick Test. It's an agile piloting concept that we have in the municipality, which allows for, we are sort of training our colleagues to understand that it's a way to sort of activate the inhabitants by doing professional, social, creative work and be active in their neighborhoods. And we had this building of a booster, a construction that should give a relaxing, nourishing space in urban surroundings for health, for nature, for calm and anti-stress, And while doing this construction, they were there just like 2 or 3 days, but they were continuously. And they had people popping by. One refuge said that, I'm an engineer, can I help you? All of these things, and just activating. It was a tiny little intervention, but still it meant so much. And I know that the experience I've married Kate from the garden caretaker concept, it's the same. So having these sort of going via a sort of a translation point that's not the municipality going directly to the inhabitant, but then you can go via an artist, a social entrepreneur, other roles and other actors in the society that could sort of just drizzle down and build that force of the movement, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Peter, you've crossed to the dark side, the private sector, to a much beloved construction company here in Denmark, which is doing its best to make the green transition. But how do you convince those awful men in suits of the different values that are inherent in the kinds of projects that Desire is all about, when there's not an obvious bottom line involved? You've seen it from both sides, right?
Well, I think what's really important is to make a case that something works, that something is attractive, has value, creates opportunity. I think that's super important to motivate anybody. I mean, be it people in suits or people like us, however you'll go about that. So I think that what is really interesting as a model for the European Bauhaus is that even though it was sort of an impulse, from the Commission, it was not formulated like, we need a solution to this. Please, give us a bit. No, it was open. It was an open question. What do we really wish to do? And then a lot of people jumped on board, to try to figure out, answers. And we had our own, collective co-creation process here. So that's a model, actually asking open questions. What is it that you value? What is it that you desire? What is it you want to do? And I think that goes as a universal model. And once those, questions get sort of shaped into, well, this is what we are interested in. This could be working with this aspect. This could go together with that team, these guys, those girls. Everything comes together, and it becomes more easy to sort of figure out, what are the overall themes, aspects, details of those things that we desire, and how can we actually try to make that work together, sort of finding the common interest. So I think that is really the unique thing that was adopted as a principle by the EU Commission. And I think it's mirrored in all these processes. And it's also mirrored in the Garden Caretaker project, because we are basically facilitating a process, asking people, well, artists, that have their own visions for working with this particular landscape, the animals on site, people, local people, inviting them in. And we that's a microcosm of the same idea. Invite questions and try to figure out, what are our shared interests. So I think that idea is really the core of the whole thing.
This word value can mean many different things to different parties. Was the private sector involved in the genesis of Desire? And if so, what was their input there?
I think that, part of the two organizing units behind the Desire project is the Danish Confederation of Industry, so that's
pretty private. Yep.
We're members. Yes, industry was very much involved, but it was, again, an open process, inviting, young people, universities, businesses, artists, anybody who wanted to contribute on board. So I think it's been an open process, really. And I think, taking my industry hat on, we are, as a company, strictly commercial. I mean, we're sort of noted on the Stockholm Stock Exchange. Our purpose is to earn money for our stakeholders. I mean, that's what a business does. But given that premise, I mean, there are a lot of things that we can do in order to improve, not just the business, but also our projects. I mean, we really want to work with the way that we sort of try to identify quality in projects. We really want to work with the stakeholders. We're very occupied by workforces, both our own workforce, but also all the people that we work with. And that extends into the supply chain. And if you look at this from a commercial perspective, one thing that I think that is very interesting of being sort of in the inside of a huge company, we are sort of operating across the Nordic countries. We do real estate development, we do construction, we do infrastructure, we also do mining, we produce gravel, asphalt.
Hence the asphalt
so basically,
fabric.
Yeah. That was sort of the beginning of the Garden Caretaker. So we have a huge value chain. It's a truly industrial organization. But then, if you look at this from a sustainability viewpoint, I mean, there are so many things that we can do better. Certainly we can. But there are also opportunities to work with the mission statement. Designing an irresistible circular society, in the way that we think of, in order to build things, be it small interventions, infrastructure, social housing, retrofits, we also need resources. And since we go back to actually where those resources come from, we have gravel pits. They actually offer an opportunity to create more biodiversity, because you change the landscape, but actually in favor of some of the species that find sort of a nutrient-poor landscape, which is a gravel pit, a desirable place to live. So I think that there are some unseen connections that we can actually begin to entertain if we look for, what connects sort of the small intervention we do here with the entire, chain of how do we make these connections into the wider landscape. So I think this idea of working in value chains, supply chains, always with an opportunity to create value, not just for people, but also for nature. We need to have a look at these business models and make them work not only in financial terms, which is where we come from, but in a true sort of triple, multiple bottom line perspective. And we're sort of beginning to think about that. What I think is really essential here is another piece of sort of legislation, again driven by the EU Commission, because a business like ours, we need to report sustainability issues alongside our financial resource. And now this becomes much more focused on environmental aspects, social aspects. And this is really the opportunity to sort of infuse businesses with a more holistic mindset. So I think these are really, really exciting days, and the EU, Europe, you know, is definitely leading the way in order to make this transition happen top down, but also from the bottom up.
I guess it's about making it aspirational and irresistible also to commercial interests as well. Do you see that as a conflict or a challenge? You talked about building trust with civic movements. Was private interest involved in what you've been doing in Willemijnpoort, Diana?
Yeah, well, actually, you mentioned that you are looking for new connections. So how the kind of connections you need. And in the way we work, we prefer to talk about relationships because we're talking about ecosystems. And since the whole project, Desire project, and also the new European Bauhaus movement is looking for transformations, how can we do things differently from what we are used to do? Because that's what we need when we want to change everything. So when we would like to change things, we have to dive deeper into what we think are ecosystems and how ecosystems work. So it means that we have to look differently at what kind of relationships do we need. How do you, as a company, relate to what you mentioned, also other species? Or how do we relate to institutions that are still there? So there is a system, but we need new systems. And to build this new kind of systems, we have to be aware that we have to learn a lot from what happens in ecosystems that are already there. In our way of working, building trust, it works, well, it's still difficult, but it works because we are focusing on a very small community. So it's a local, the local community of Wilderman neighborhood is really helpful. So we can build relationships, and that will help to build trust within this community. And that's what you need in the first place. Otherwise, you're still talking to different people that are not connected. So building a strong community is the first thing to do. Otherwise, as a company or as a municipality or whatever, you cannot relate to this community. So I think this is what we try to learn with Desire, is how to build new ecosystems. At least that's my conclusion of what we did the last 2 years. And we learned a lot all together. So we had a lot of talks and conversations with all the partners in the project about this aspect. So I think that we have to keep in mind. And then also companies, of course, they're part of it, of the ecosystems, but we have to learn this all together.
And Helene, in terms of the commercial aspect of that ecosystem in Stavanger, how does that work?
Well, we have discovered that NEB-Star as a platform for testing out in fairly safe environment an ecosystem where all these aspects are included. The private developer of ours wanted to join NEB-Star because they didn't have any tools or tradition to become a part of a neighborhood and to interact with neighbors, residents in the area. But they saw that as an upside to their value. And they wanted to be sort of a lighthouse themselves for the construction industry and to sort of train and be in front and lead how you develop in a sustainable way, also with the social inclusion involved. And we now sort of try to express how are these sort of values now able to be defined. They're not direct. You can't see the investment and then leading to some benefit, but then maybe also going via these things. And that organic network way of thinking is so different from the linear that Torben talked about. You know, you have to sort of go from direct and to a rhizome. You have to go from linear to a circular, you know, and regenerative. But I think if you also find the value of being more local, that you have higher diversity, you could also reduce transport. There are so many benefits of being more local, and that also gives unique spaces to live, and sort of also the aesthetics of it all, where you can actually, as a resident, as an employee, feel that this is very unique and I connect with it. And that connectivity is also sort of very important on the meta level where you discuss the policy. So you need the scalability of what we're doing to go from concrete learnings to sort of see, okay, we can build policy. And can I mention one more thing?
Please.
Because you said the common goals or common values. And we've been thinking a bit about that idea of something that is common, that is joint, that may be to sort of be aligned with a more network and rhizome concept, the perspective, and maybe having more like co-understanding. It's sort of an more open-ended, not that sort of closed, defined value, or that we have this common goal, because that is so specific usually. But if we have co-goals, then it sort of allows for more people to connect and activate themselves, because if something is more open, then maybe I can see myself in that picture. But if it's already defined, then probably not relevant. You know, so I think all of these things we need to sort of explore further. And we have the NEB facility coming up, just mentioning.
What's that?
Well,
Tell me more about that.
The NEB facility is a research funding from EU now to follow up the lighthouse projects and to sort of prolong the NEB initiative.
But it sounds like one big aspect of what all three of you are involved in is getting power holders to relinquish some power, which has to happen for this all to work, for circularity to function. Any tips or insights or experiences you'd like to share about getting those power holders to relinquish some power?
I think again, if you can demonstrate, how your creativity, and when I say your, I mean that can be sort of a co-created, but if you can demonstrate how whatever you've created, is a success, and it can be a success in many ways, then that creates an open door, mentally for people in power. I think that, there's so much to be said about power, in general.
Yeah,
But allowing people in, I think that's actually sort of a diffusion of power.
But you're dealing with the municipality, for example,
Yeah.
who are a big part of your project. And there are people who have ways of doing things in the municipality and a certain power to do as they wish. How have you persuaded them to let other people in? And has it been difficult?
Yeah. You need the personal trust, and you need to start with very simple experiences, and they needed to be personal. You need to be in the specific meeting room where the planner meets the private developer. And I think one of the clues for sort of motivating the stakeholders that we've engaged is that we are discussing not sort of solving a concrete case, but we're discussing principles or challenges or things that we share, but we see from different perspectives. And that sort of builds the relation that you spoke about. And those relations, they're fresh, but they're also super potent when it comes to sort of building the movement. But you need those.
Yeah, and it's also, you use the word power, and of course now you can define that there are powers that are not connected, so they are against each other. But for instance, in the things we are doing in the Wildeman neighborhood, we need, for instance, the municipality as an ally, as a partner, trying to achieve things. And now sometimes they act like being a kind of power that has to force things or to force us to become part of their territorium. So I think it needs new words, new languages, new roles we have to define, because we are talking about a new kind of culture we are actually looking for, and then it implies that the roles have to be redefined, but also the words and things. That's a lot of work to do, but I think we are altogether middle of it, doing this.
Is it important to send a message to Brussels? Is there anything you would like Brussels to understand about what you've been through? Helene, maybe?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking in order to have a shift and a movement, we need to move away from those big, lighthouse projects. They have a function, but I think for each and every municipality around in all of Europe, you need to find ways to connect with the smaller units. You need the ways to have, smaller projects also, and that requires legal challenges or changes. It requires, structural changes. But if we can allow for maybe a freer way to design things, allow for that innovation to happen because it's not that rigid, then I believe we go somewhere. But that is also what we need to talk, together with our peers as well, to dare to do that sort of innovation part.
Can you just join me in a time machine as we race to 2030 and look back? Peter, Andreas, how would you like NCC to be in the year 2030? If you could,
well,
the president of the company by now.
That's a very interesting question, because whatever we do right now, we have projects that sort of are very slow. It takes an awful lot of time to build a big project. So whatever we do now will, probably
come to fruition in 2030.
Be delivered. People move in and so on. 5 years from now, and they will definitely judge what we're doing now with a totally different sets of eyes. They will look at, what were they thinking?
About what specifically? Some specifics that you think we'll look back on and go, man.
Well,
I hope doing that.
I really hope that that we'll begin to adopt a very holistic mindset, recognizing that power, value, comes in different shapes. I think that very important recognition is that we all have our unique, powers and abilities, and we can chip in. So I think that sort of the democratic conversation about what it is that we want to achieve is super important. I hope that a company like the one that I work for will have adopted that mindset and really recognize that we're not just a money machine, we're really a value creation, facilitator, not just for our owners, but for society and the people that we work with in the entire value chain, creating jobs that are, good, built environments that are wonderful places to work, wonderful places to live. I hope that we have a more holistic understanding of that, and also that will have happened, in the more financially, focused businesses that we usually work with, because I think that we're really on a common journey, to begin to develop this notion of value in multiple, dimensions, and we shouldn't recognize the power of the good exemplar in order to create that notion of value. I come from a background in innovation, based on architectural design and technology. And I've seen so many times, that once you can demonstrate that this really works and it creates value in many terms, this project, is people are happy to live there. It's sort of cheaper than it could have been. Even have a lower resource, use. These things can be created. And once they are there, you can't unsee them, and they become the notion that we work on for the future. So I think the entire idea of creating demonstrators is the way to go.
Irresistible demonstrators.
Exactly. That's it. And we can do that, as a movement in the new European Bauhaus as well, because the principle that we're working on is really, co-creation, developing these shared sense of value and creating, solutions that create more opportunity and hence are more desirable. And once you have demonstrated that mechanics of operation, now I'm sort of going back into the business model, it can become a principle that you actually apply as a law because it works. And I would love to see the processes that we work with that I from the EU originally in the new European Bauhaus, open question, what do you want to do? From the bottom down. You can make a company like NCC, you can make it report, how do you do that? Well, we do that like this, and we develop a process that accommodate that process, try and work with that. We're seeing this happening in the financial world around us at the moment, and having sustainability reporting is really changing the environment. Hopefully for the better, but I really see it happening.
Diana, paint a picture of Wildemann-Boort in 2030, very briefly.
Yeah, I don't want to be naive, but because it's really hard what we are up to. But I feel that the expertise and all the things that are there in the neighborhood, all the people with all the cultural diversity, all the expertise, is a very good start for creating something new that will be helpful to create stronger democracy and create a stronger Europe. But how we will reach that, I'm not sure that we can do it. I mentioned building allies, and I hope for it, but I'm not sure that this will work, because it's a hard thing to do, to connect all the power that's still there to this unleashed power of the people living in all these communities. So I really hope that we are able to make new connections and build new ecosystems. But so I'm not sure what kind of neighborhoods the Wildemann neighborhood will be. If it will be a demonstrator of how this could work in a new way, or if it will be a neighborhood for people that are more like activists and trying to force things, because that's what they want. They have their dreams. They want to change things, but until now they're not really listened to. So I don't know where it will end, but yeah.
I hope they're unleashed. Helene, 2030 in Stavanger.
Yeah, it's a society where people value, where power holders value the people and value the nature, and also value the togetherness, the networks and the collaboration, where you are able to see the co-benefits and where we're able to value the local. And I think it sort of, the values-based, the purpose economy is really something that could move us further and away from sort of what makes a city attractive. Is it the money and the jobs? And because what we have this commercial going on now with people are coming to Stavanger region for the job, but they're staying for the region and what's the leisure. And I think that's sort of, why don't we just tilt our economy around, and also how we run the politics, because that's our biggest asset. That's our value, the society, the neighborhoods, the nature. That's who we are, our stories. If that could be put in the equation of what makes a society good, then I think we're there.
You've still got a year to go, so.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions in the last couple of minutes? Hands up, and we send out a microphone. Yes. Can you just say who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, well, my name is Louise. I'm actually working locally at something called Miljøpunkt Indre By Christianshavn, which is a kind of environmental agency for locals in the inner city. I've been participating in different kind of projects, and as we all know, like engaging people, usually those people who actively participate, they are higher educated, they have a certain incomes, a certain knowledge, and what I experienced, the main issue was to reach out to people with lower education, people who are disabled, people who are very old, very young, and all kind of things. So how do you reach out and how do you make them participate so you actually got a great picture? Because I really feel like that's almost impossible.
Great question. Who would like to take that?
I can start.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, What we've learned was that we had to go via the other ones. You know, I'm representing the municipality, going via the social entrepreneurs, via the artists, via people who are sort of at the neighborhood level, and also inviting in to do neighborhood activities, not inviting in to do sort of much more advanced or even though that is necessary as well, but you have to start somewhere. You have to start very basically and then build sort of that understanding and build that mutual trust and understanding of what is your expertise, how can you contribute, and doing that by not asking, you know, where do you want a city to be in 5 years' time, you know.
Sorry. Diana.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I can elaborate on that because as NGOs, we work in the community, so we are embedded, we are located in a community, so we are there all the time. And we do a lot of activities and projects and things that are related to issues in the neighborhood. We work with people in the neighborhood. So we know the people. At least we know who they are. But then still to connect to their questions and the things they're looking for is another step to make, and that's hard work to find out. So that's why we took the decision to make these design and do groups to put the people in the neighborhood in the front line of what we are doing, to start there to build something new. So it's not impossible, absolutely not, but it needs what you already mentioned, building trust with the people that are working in the neighborhood and that are connected to the people every day. So that's important.
And you need to be there for a longer period. You have to be there.
Yes, we
can't
are
just
there
have, like,
since
one
2009, so
Yeah,
that's quite
exactly.
some time.
We
Yeah.
have
It's really valuable.
one brief question. Someone's burning to ask. No? Okay, Peter, do you have a final comment?
Well, I could try and answer a little bit. I mean, I think it depends very much, you know, how do we invite people on board in projects? It depends very much what kind of project it is and what are the conditions surrounding that project. We really work with people when we do retrofits and transformations because there are people working, living where we work, and that creates a lot of tension, and we really need to handle that as best as possible so that we're very careful what we do when we build inside a schoolyard, for instance, full of school children. So that's a very important process, to really ask and coordinate and figure out. We also try to offer jobs and also to qualify people for jobs. So that's one point. When it comes to building new buildings, it's more complicated because there is a democratic process, before planning permission, but that's basically it. And I think that process could be much improved.
And there are learnings from Desire for that process, I would imagine, by the bucket load, right?
Yeah, and also, the connection, sometimes you do small-scale interventions, other times you do big-scale interventions. But nevertheless, I mean, I would love to see more of the approach that we do when we do transformations, retrofits, the care that we show when you actually have new builds or partly new build projects. Because I think that there's an opportunity here for common good that could be much better.
Of course, Helene, Peter, Andreas, and Diana are going to be around all day for the rest of the day, so you can chat to them, and also at the end of the afternoon. So I'm going to have to draw it to a close there. Could you please put your hands together for Helene, Eiliott, Diana Krabbendam, and Peter Andreas Sattrup. Thank you very much.